I'm back, ready to talk about the lids. And I have the little tin that I wrapped earlier for you. So I'm going to show you how to create a lid for that type of can. As I mentioned before, this kind of lid, as many of you have already made out of clay, is one piece that has the flange attached to the bottom. Sometimes we make it with a solid, circle piece of clay. A lot of times we would put a ring on it, almost like a foot. In our case for this, we are just going to use two solid pieces. And I learned my lesson when I did this one because I didn't care for how thin it was, and because I used two pieces of like cereal box cardboard. So while it looks fine for what it is, I'd like this one to look a little bit different. So I am going to use two pieces of corrugated cardboard for the lid and one for the flange. Okay, so you're going to need cardboard for this. You are going to need two pieces of paper, one to cover the lid, the other one to cover the flange, and then you're going to glue the two together sort of bad side to bad side so that you don't see that mess. And then you end up with, do something that's contrasting if you'd like it to stand out, so that you can kind of see the difference. And that's going to be the thing that actually holds. Mine was a little small on this one, so it's got a little more play than I would want, but it's going to be what holds your lid in place. Okay, so just like clay, except it's cardboard. All right. So for this, you're going to have to size it because it's going to be dependent upon the can that you have. I have enough paper here to wrap the flange and the lid, and I have one piece that was sort of pre-cut, but I want to show you how to make your sort of paper template so that you don't end up screwing up your cardboard and then having to start over. Okay, so it's much easier to just cut a piece of paper that is the size that you need it to be. So any scrap paper that you can see the line, you're going to take your can, turn it upside down with a pencil or a pen, trace around it. That is exactly the size of your lid. So you will cut this one exactly on that line. Or as close to exactly as you can, since this is the one that is going to be sitting along the edge. Okay, so that's like that. The next part is a little trickier. You can use the piece of paper or you can trace the tin again, but this time you want to make it smaller. When we're working with clay, we use the gauge of the thickness of the clay to bring it in so that we know that that lid will fit. In this case, it's pretty thin, so there's not a lot of substance to this edge. So the line that you are going to end up cutting on is just going to be very, very, slightly smaller. So you can draw it if you want, if that is easier to you, or you can just sort of cut a little mini line on the inside of the line that you traced. Kind of use the thickness of the scissors itself to help you cut. And you'll see it when you're done. Like you'll go, oh goodness, a little further off than you thought, but you'll be able to see if you nailed it by the line, not so bad, by the line that's left over. Okay, you can also tell if you've got it right by sticking the can. Ooh, that's interesting. Not quite enough. It should fall in, but it doesn't. So I did not go far enough. That's a good lesson to sort of see. I would have thought I had based on what I did. So just trim a little bit more until it either falls in or you can turn the can over and make it fit. For my metal students, you guys did this. but you were making your lid out of metal. But the same kind of thing, you had to create a template for a thing that already existed. And that's what we're doing here. So my metals kids have a slightly bit of an advantage, all right? So it just fell right down to the bottom. So that's a good sign. Providing you can get it back out. Ah! There we go. Okay, so we know that that is the right size. So now I have a template that is the flange, and I have a template that is the actual lid. The paper that I have selected for the lid is going to be this one, even though it's smaller. It'll be large enough to cover that cardboard once it's glued down. To know what it is that you're going to be using, you have to look at it sort of through it, because you're not going to be gluing this way, because that defeats the purpose, because you'd be gluing on the part that you actually want. So use a light source, the window, or you can just hold it up to a light so that you can kind of see where it is that you want it to go. In my case, mine was already sort of pre-cut. You can draw the line on it just to give you a vague idea of where you're gluing, or you can just kind of wing it or hold it back up to the light again. All right, so this is the lid template, and I'm going to cut to have it be exactly on that line. Cutting through corrugated cardboard is a little weird. When you maybe you cut for when you were wrapping it, but when you're cutting a circle, it's a little strange. So just try to stay on the line as best as you can. If it's giving you issue, just sort of cut off of it like this. You're not going to see this edge because it's going to be covered with paper. Just go round and round. It's easier to cut when you're in line with the creases of the corrugation, but when you're going against it, it's a little trickier. Okay? You are not going to see this, so it does not matter what it looks like. It just matters that it's the right size and not too wonky. If you think it's got a corner, you might want to trim that off. Okay? Now this one is going to get glued about here, and then I'm going to be showing you how to wrap so that when you cut, because you can't just like fold it or you'll get all of these points. So I'll be showing you how to trim it and glue it so that it's completely wrapped. And then you're going to do the same thing to the flange, and then you glue those two pieces together. It does not matter which direction this is glued. I think I'll probably put this smoother side down. Get a little bit of glue, and just like you did before, you're just going to slide it around. Get a little bit of glue all over the place. Use the tip of the glue to kind of smush it out. You are going to see this. It's just a single piece of paper, so you don't want to have big, thick blobs of glue, or it'll show up and make your magazine wiggly. Okay, now this is what you also want to remember. Don't get so excited that you're going to be like, whoop, and then stick it down on the side that you actually want. You are going to have to put it on the opposite side, because this is the part that you want. Okay, so this is the bottom. Now to make that glue a little bit more evenly distributed, you can just slide your cardboard around until it stops sliding, and then that kind of means that it's stuck. Plus you can also take your fingers from the other side and smooth that out. If it's getting wiggly, you probably put a little too much glue on there, and you just kind of smush it, and it'll dry a little flatter. Wrapping the round edge with a straight edge is the hardest part, so you're going to trim it. Probably about maybe no more than 1/2 inch. And you'll know when you try to bend it around if it's got corners, and if it does, that means you are cutting too far apart. You can always trim these. I'm cutting right in to the edge, stopping at where the cardboard is glued. And then I can always cut them off if I felt like it. I don't think I'm gonna. All right, so now it's got all these little kind of like feathers. And then you'll put glue a little bit. You can do a few at a time, but enough glue that you're going to be able to have it stick to the edge and well, it's the top, but it's really going to be the bottom, if that makes sense. Okay, so here I have about a quarter of it or so. Take it, flip it, and then take your finger and smush out that crease. You are going to have little points. It's pretty inevitable to do that, but they should be able to be smushed away. It does not matter what that looks like because it's going to get covered up. What matters is what this looks like. That's looking pretty good. It's round. I tried to get the school bus in there. I kind of covered some of it up. So you're going to work your way all the way around. And then you are going to do the exact same thing, but with the flange. Okay, hopefully they are close to the cardboard edge. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a big puff, like sort of like a pillow of air in between. But that's going to sit on like that. This is going to be a little stronger than this skinny little guy was. Okay, then this is the flange. This fits down inside. Trace that on your cardboard. And cut. Now this guy is a bigger piece of paper, but I'm going to use what's in here, and I've already drawn where I want to glue it. Okay, and you can test the flange. That's a little tight, so I'm going to trim a little bit more off. You want it to be loose enough, like just with the clay. You know, if it's too tight, I mean, that just made a terrible sound. But in our case here, the paper is going to add sort of dimension to it, the way the glaze would add dimension to it. So you need it to be loose enough that when this sits down on it, even accounting for the paper that's going to go around the side, you have a little bit of room. All right, that ought to do it. So I'm gluing somewhere in there. I wanted to capture this crazy woman and these ants. I liked these cookie faces. So it's not actually where I drew that line. It is further in. So I'm going to place it inside that circle. All right, I'm going to glue on this wiggly side now. And the reason for that is that's the part that gets attached to the bottom. Oh, that's not right. Live theater, remember, you'll see it won't really make that much of a difference. What I was saying is that, you know, if you glued the smoother side down, that's the side that faces out, but I think you'll still be okay. So if it happens, don't be alarmed. Okay, now this guy I'm definitely going to trim because I don't want that creepy face staring at me. Woo. But I also don't want to have to wrap and glue that much extra stuff. All right, so same as before. Snip up to the edge. No bigger than a ½ inch. That's funny. Around that edge. Like the true test. Ah, it still fits. Ooh, it's a very nice fit too. It's running away. So the ugly side to the ugly side with enough distance so that it is centered so that this fits and sits straight on the top of your lid. These are flat enough pieces of cardboard that you probably will be able to just put some glue and set the two together and they should stay flat. If you're using thinner cardboard, you might want to clamp it. If you're using thick cardboard, you can clamp it too. But this is going to go here. And then that'll sit on like that. If you have the same paper that you used for the side, you can use that for the lid and then have something contrasting underneath. Like I said, if you think that it's going to not quite sit, you can clamp the two. And if you're afraid you're going to squish it, you can put pieces of cardboard in between your clamp. Okay, so it should still fit so that you don't dent what you have. With this thicker cardboard, you don't really have to do it because it's going to sit there just fine. But with the thinner stuff, it could give you trouble. All right, so there you go. If you want to do a little doodly doot on the top, all this is one of those rolled tubes of magazine that I showed you during the rolled paper video, and it's flattened and then sort of rolled on top of itself, sort of like paper quilling. And it has a little center that I then stuck the little branch inside of. Okay. So you can put something on there, you can put a little rock, you can put anything you'd like. Anything that you think is going to finish the look of your can. All cans that were cut with an opener are going to have this kind of lid because there's nothing for the lid to sit on. So if you just put a single piece of cardboard, it will just fall off. So the flange is a very necessary aspect of this. And this one fits way better than the one that I made for this one. Partly because of the thickness of the cardboard and also partly, I guess, because of me. So you get better at it as you do it. You know, I'm sort of making this up. So since cardboard is the new clay, this is what we're dealing with. Your finished glamour shot for your lidded tin is due on Thursday by midnight. Okay, so you have free reign for how you finish the lid. And it's really kind of the fun part. So have a little fun with taking whatever it was that you put on the side and creating an interesting lid to go with it. Okay, I look forward to seeing what you submit, and I'll see you soon.